Mastering the positive work habit of attendance can help you achieve your professional goals and receive many of the benefits we've talked about in the beginning. How exactly do you go about mastering attendance? Well, you start by making work your highest priority. Place your job highest in importance among any activities you might do at a particular time. For example, if your friends decide they want to go to the lake and you have to go to work, you have a choice to make. But if work is your highest priority, then you will join them after your shift. Make up your mind not to let anything short of a personal health problem or family emergency prevent you from going to work. If you have a work schedule that changes every 2 weeks, make it a priority to know your schedule. Be sure that you're aware of exactly when you're expected to be at work. If you know your schedule, then you never have to say, "Well, I didn't know when I was supposed to work." Take the initiative, and you'll be well on your way to mastering attendance. Get enough sleep, and obtain the necessary rest to do your job well. Use an alarm clock to help you ensure that you wake up and arrive at work just as scheduled. Another helpful tip for getting enough sleep is to get a sleep routine going and stick to it even on your days off. Not only will this help you get to work, but you'll also feel better rested and alert when you do wake up. The last tip for mastering attendance is pre-planning. Pre-planning is thinking ahead of what you will do if the unexpected happens. For example, what would you do if you went out to start your car and the battery was dead? Well, you can start by making sure your transportation is reliable, taking it for regular maintenance and tune-ups. Even then, you may still end up with a dead battery, so the next step is creating a backup plan just in case. You could get a coworker's phone number and have them pick you up, or you could know your public transportation system and ride the bus. If neither option works, you could walk or ride a bike. Finally, as a last resort, you could call a taxi. It might cost you some money, but it still is cheaper than missing an entire day of work. These are just a few options, and you may already have a plan, but it's always helpful to have a backup just in case. On the same theme, it's important also to pre-plan and make sure you have reliable childcare. Start by hiring a reliable babysitter or selecting a childcare center that is open when you work. Learn about their policies for ill children and conditions under which they close. Have an emergency plan. Find a couple of friends who are willing to take your kids in a crunch. In some cases, hospitals and specialized childcare centers will take care of your children when they are ill. They cost more than normal childcare, but they are less costly than an unpaid day of work or losing your job. Also, talk with your supervisor when they're planning your schedule. A supervisor can usually schedule to cover a one-day absence with just a few weeks' notice. A vacation may require several months' notice. Ask your supervisor how much notice is needed to schedule days off. Making contingency plans can help prevent unnecessary absent days. So what should you do when you must be absent? Well, if some unexpected emergency does arise, before calling, ask yourself, do I need to be gone the whole day, or can I resolve this in a few hours and still come in late? After you decide that, call in as soon as possible so that a possible replacement can be found, and always try and speak directly to your supervisor. When you speak to your supervisor about why you will be absent or late, follow these steps. Identify yourself. Explain the reason you can't be at work. Tell them how long you expect to be gone, and then apologize for the inconvenience. You should always be honest when you report to your supervisor. It's the right thing to do, and it could take a long time to regain your supervisor's broken trust if they learn you were dishonest. When you apologize for the inconvenience your absence or tardiness may cause, you also may express a willingness to make up for the absence when you return by making up the hours you missed. This is important because it shows that you still want to work and might allow the supervisor to make a trade with another employee. Again, the most important way for you to have good attendance is to make work your highest priority and get enough sleep so you can show up for work well rested and ready to work. We've finished discussing attendance, so now let's move on to talk about appearance. Whether we feel it's right or not, the fact is others do form opinions about us based on our appearance, our smell, our cleanliness, and even our mannerisms. Sometimes we have only an instant to make a good impression. In fact, it's been found that a first impression is usually made somewhere within 3 to 30 seconds, during which time people judge things like your educational level, your career competence, success, personality, level of sophistication, trustworthiness, even things like your sense of humor and social heritage. First impressions are nearly impossible to erase after they're made. For example, if on your first day of work you act arrogantly and give the impression that you already know everything, your coworkers may pull away. You may find it difficult to develop positive working relationships. So do your best to make every first impression as positive as possible. One way to do this is to dress for success. If you want to get promoted and take on a new role and new responsibilities, dress like you already have that job. For example, if you're a stock person and you'd love to move into the cashier spot, pay attention to the clothes cashiers wear and match those same clothes. Wearing the clothes that match the position you want works for two reasons. First, people naturally assume the better dressed you are, the higher your position in the company. And second, your clothes will help you stand out and indicate to your employer where you see yourself going, rather than where you see yourself staying. Dressing for success applies to the interview process as well. You may be applying for an entry-level position, but if you dress one level above what that position requires, it creates a positive first impression, and it allows the hiring manager the chance to visualize you in a new or different role than the one you initially applied for. It is important that we also know that appearance is more than just the clothes we wear. It's also our actions. Research shows that it takes 12 positive interactions to erase the damage of one negative interaction. So remember that when you meet people for the first time. Display a positive attitude and avoid things like swearing, showing up late, not turning your phone off, slouching, avoiding eye contact, and other behaviors that may leave a negative impression. When it comes to clothes, if you follow the simple tips here, you'll almost never go wrong. Wear the right or appropriate clothes for the job. Almost all jobs require that employees wear a certain style of clothes. Janitors and mechanics may wear coveralls. Quick service restaurant employees wear company-provided shirts and hats. Office workers purchase their own slacks and dress shirts. Sometimes the clothes are for your protection, and sometimes it's so that you convey a positive first impression to customers. It is important you try and wear clothes only once between washes. This is so you can avoid offensive smells and the appearance of dirtiness. Of course, this is not an absolute rule, since many clothes, like suits and blouses, require dry cleaning or special care. Use this simple 3-question method to decide if you can get another use out of your clothes. Ask yourself, did I sweat in it? Did I put a stain on it? Does it look worn? If you answer yes to any of these questions, it's always a good idea to find a different article of clothing to wear. Be aware of the age of your clothes. If your clothes have holes in them, or hundreds of little lint balls, it might be time to retire them and get new ones. Make use of an iron, and make sure your clothes are truly the wash and dry type. Even freshly laundered clothes can appear wrinkled and old sometimes. Ironing adds that extra touch that shows that you pay attention to detail. Wear the appropriate shoes. First think of comfort, then worry about appearance. However, your shoes should be clean and fit your position in the company. Black is usually a safe bet when it comes to shoe color. Next to clothes, personal hygiene is vital to a good appearance and setting a good first impression. Ask yourself this: how do I know that I am properly groomed and don't have a smell about me? How do I know I don't look like this guy? Well, the answer should be easy if we do everything on this slide every day before work. It is standard in jobs where you exert yourself to shower at least every day. If you have a desk job and don't perspire heavily, you may be able to bathe every other day. The accumulation of dirt, oil, and sweat on the skin and hair can lead to an offensive body odor and irritated skin if not adequately cleaned. Likewise, good oral hygiene, brushing and flossing daily, aids in the prevention of bad breath, cavities, and gum disease. Hair, much like the body, can build up excess oils and dandruff. Well-maintained and styled hair completes your look and displays an attention to detail. Clean and trim your nails. It may seem like a small thing, but this will help you avoid transferring germs and, again, help show that you give attention to detail, even in your personal appearance. We've finished discussing appearance, but I'd like to check your understanding for a moment to make sure we're clear. How long does it take for someone to make their first impression? That's right, usually between about 3 to 30 seconds. Why don't we move on to the last topic, productivity? In a survey about productivity, employees admitted to wasting about 2 out of every 8 hours they worked, not including lunches and breaks. In fact, employers end up spending about $759 billion per year on salaries when workers were supposed to be productive, but no work was actually performed. What are we really talking about here? Well, think about some behaviors you've seen employees do that waste a part of their workday. Some behaviors identified were chatting with coworkers, spending time on personal things like errands. Some people admitted to just spacing out for a period of time, or worse, hiding out in closets or in stairways. Personal calls also made the list, as did applying for other jobs, arriving late, and leaving early, and lastly, surfing the net or texting. The advice here is pretty simple. Give 8 hours of work for 8 hours of pay. If you are scheduled to work 8 hours with 2 10-minute breaks and a half-hour lunch break, you really should do your best to work your 8 hours that day. One last point. Now, we've been talking about some pretty sensitive topics today, and in the future, your employer might need to speak with you about some sensitive matters as well, maybe in the form of criticism. We all know it can be very hard to receive criticism. So if your employer approaches you about anything we've discussed today, here are some tips to help you handle it professionally. When a supervisor is giving you feedback, there are 5 things you should strive to do. Number 1, listen very carefully to the suggestions being made. You could ask yourself, what is the intention behind what they're saying to me? Despite their delivery method, try to filter out your own biases or any barriers that may arise. If the supervisor is not smooth in delivering the feedback, or if they have a different delivery style of giving feedback than you're used to, try not to hold that against them. Instead, try to hear what your supervisor is really saying and understand the intent of the feedback. Step 2, ask polite, reasonable questions in order to help you to understand what they mean and what it should mean to you. Use active listening to ensure you understand what's really being said. Step 3, offer to correct the error if there is one. Avoid making excuses or explaining your point of view if this really isn't necessary. Step 4, Thank the person giving the feedback, since really they're doing you a favor by talking to you about it instead of just letting you go or not promoting you. Step 5. Return to work. If you need to, you could take a few moments to decompress, and if it isn't your break time, let your supervisor know how you feel and that you need a few minutes. Usually they'll understand and agree. The point is, if the feedback was constructive, you shouldn't complain or try to garner support from other coworkers. For example, it's never a good idea to go out and gossip or complain about your supervisor behind their back because these things usually do get around and they may hear about it later. It's best if you really try to keep your conversation between you and your supervisor. When you consistently demonstrate these work behaviors, you develop a good reputation for yourself. Demonstrating these qualities will likely allow your employer to trust you and believe in you. There comes a time when an employer or supervisor needs to be able to give additional responsibilities to an employee, like closing up at the end of the day, supervising a project, handling the company's cash, or whatever it might be. Employees who demonstrate positive work habits show that they can be trusted to perform these tasks responsibly. Being given additional responsibilities means that you're valuable to your employer, and you then are closer to many of the benefits we talked about in the beginning, things such as promotions and raises. Lastly, you will be allowed more freedom on the job. Hopefully, as we went through our training today, you learned some ways to strengthen your already existing work habits. Like we said in the beginning, doing your best at work has to be internally motivated and come from your personal desire to achieve whatever goals you've set for yourself. By making work your highest priority, nothing short of personal health or family emergencies will prevent you from arriving at work on time and ready. Be self-disciplined and avoid those behaviors that negatively affect coworkers and customers. If you do all the things we talked about today, you'll quickly find yourself in line for those future rewards. It's truly a win-win situation for everyone. Thank you for your time and have a great day.